Hello all, a Knife's Tale here, bringing you a knife review of this Asher knife, and no, the knife is not in here, it's over here! This is the Asher Spiro with the thumb hole. The original, I believe, had thumb studs, and was still a great knife. Sneak peek, too long didn't read. This is a great knife. And this particular one is in this beautiful silver twill carbon fiber. These things tend not to stick around for too long, so you kind of have to be on the ball when you're trying to get one. They tend not to be in stock for too long. They tend to sell out for a reason. They're really well priced and they're really, really well executed. I think they're dialed in the US, even though they're not made in there. They seem to be just extremely, from what I've heard and from this knife, they exemplify what you want in a good knife. Not a ton of frills, but done really well. I really like them. I really like this knife. Let's talk about this knife as soon as we're done with the specs. Overall, this is a just under 7.5, just over 7 3/8. I guess it's a little closer to that. The blade is 3 1/4, and the handle is just under 4 1/4. Pretty good ratios, honestly. Let's make our comparisons to the Civivi Elementum for the small knife. Where's the Conspirator for the full-size knife? And the Asher Spiro. As you can see, it's actually closer in overall size. But it feels closer in overall size to the Elementum, but it falls kind of directly in between the two. Though it kind of looks like it's closer to the Elementum, mostly because it gets really thin out here, where the Elementum's still a little bit more stout. But it's pretty well in between. Not a huge knife by any measure. Sort of a small, medium. Very friendly to carry. It's not ultra tall, though it is taller than the Elementum. It's pretty darn thin. And these are contoured scales. It's definitely thinner than the Conspirator. And it's about as tall as the Conspirator, honestly. It's very easy to carry. Weight. Being full carbon fiber, there are liners here. They're in there tight, but they have been milled out a bit for some weight reduction. 3.29 ounces, so basically almost an ounce an inch. Almost on the dot. So excellent ratios, blade to handle ratio, blade to weight ratio. This is just a very straightforward but comprehensively designed knife, if that makes sense. Hardware. You got T8 on the pivot, T8 on the body, T6 on the pocket clip. So if you have to reverse it, you're going to have to interact with the T6 once. Other than that, never again. I mean, I would prefer it to be T8, of course, but seeing as I'm not going to be messing with this pocket clip, I'm not going to complain too much on this one. Oh, this thing's already on. It's probably going to die then. The eternal fight with the calipers. 454 thousandths thick, under half an inch. Blade stock. This is where these things shine. 98 thousandths so about 100 thousandths on the blade stock. And behind the edge, it's got a very small edge bevel. Pretty small. Not very, very small, but pretty small. And behind the edge is, on mine, 10 to 11 thousandths behind the edge. Again, these things are very specific in what they're trying to do, and they do it very well. This is razor thin. This thing goes through paper no problem whatsoever. I mean, it has no resistance. It is extremely thin. And from what I've heard, they come with very good edges. This one certainly has. This thing has some bite, and this has been used. I can't speak to the heat treat. I imagine it's probably not too different from industry standards coming out of China. But, oof, wicked edge, wicked thin. This cuts like a beast. Geometry cuts, and this thing has it for days. I think we are about done with all the basic specs. Oh, I've been doing a comparison with AA batteries so that anybody can pretty have an idea of what they're looking at here. And as you can see, the AA batteries are almost the length of the handle. Like 1 for 1 almost. So yeah, it's not huge, yet it fits my hands. I wear a large size glove, aside from some stubby fingers, but super comfortable, super manipulatable. I don't know about the... yeah, the pinch grip actually works pretty darn well. Or the... whatever you call that, I guess. I don't know why you'd ever do this, but you can. Okay, so, now, moving on. We've got M390 on the blade steel. They do come in... I think they've done an S90V variant, too. Don't quote me on that. But it's typically sort of M390, S35, some premium steels. On this very drop point blade. Easily accessible tip because it's dropped so low, the tip. Super thin, stays thin behind the edge. The plunge ends here, which doesn't seem far away from the edge, but you also have to realize that the edge is then well below the plunge. And this is a knife where it's so thin behind the edge and so thin on the geometry that leaving it at like almost 20 thousandths, or not 20 thousandths, sorry, 20 degrees per side will still give you excellent function. I mean, 20 degrees per side is not going to give you bad function in general, but normally like 17-ish, or dropping that degree per side down lower for like some real fine slicey stuff, this is going to do it even without doing that. So you don't have to lay it back, and you don't have to worry about that plunge grind because it's well out of the way, and the stop pin is up here in front of this part of the tang and ricasso area. So you can do whatever you want. You can cut in more choil. But you're not going to need to for a while. It's very well done. Got a big old thumb cut out, along with some jimping. It's actually, it doesn't look like it's going to be great jimping. It almost looks like it's going to be softened too much, but it really does grip well. For as little as there is there, it grips pretty well. The thumb hole, or yeah, the thumb hole, aperture, whatever, works for both methods of opening this knife extremely well. It is extremely accessible from both sides. Moving on, we have the Asher logo, and the blade is sterile except for the M390, because the Asher brand logo is right there on the pivot, and I don't mind it. Don't mind it one bit. It looks good. It's a nice logo. It's nice and clean. Lock bar. Lock bar is right there. Is the lock bar? Yeah, the lock bar and internals are steel. So it's steel and titanium. Lock bar is right there. You've got a little bit of jimping texture here, but it's not too aggressive like some can get. So it feels really good. You've got a ton of lock bar access, so you're not having trouble. And you've got that little nub back here, which I like these when they have these nubs, to hit on your nail. This knife is on bearings, obviously, as I somehow fail it. It is very smooth. It is shake shut. It's not a drop shut, but it is very smooth, and honestly, yeah, I like the action on this a lot. It's great. It's very satisfying. Very thin in there because of that blade stock. The liners are, in fact, inset into the scale, so milled out. Milled out carbon fiber probably doesn't alleviate much weight, but it's there. Beautiful in this case, again, silver twill carbon fiber. They have done silver, blue, and black carbon fibers. I really wanted to get one of those blue ones when they came out. I missed my shot. Before the blue one came out, though, the silver one came out, and I was not missing that. So I jumped at this one because that's just wonderful looking, and I like this material. Alatex carbon fiber or something like that, is it called? I don't remember. I could just say silver twill. Got a geared back spacer, also in the same material, so you get side cut silver twill, which is cool looking. Hidden lanyard post, best thing it can be. Not being prioritized over the clip, which is a deep carry wire clip. It is a very strong clip, I will admit. I do think the clip could be improved a little bit. There's a little too much flat out here at the end for my taste, which combined with how strong it is makes it... Well, it's a wire clip. It still functions in and out of the pocket, so it still works. It's just, I think it maybe could be a little bit better if they did adjust it a tiny bit. But, honestly, it works. What am I complaining about? I'm not. I'm just finding something to talk about is what I'm doing. This is probably... I mean, you're always going to feel a wire clip, but this is an extremely comfortable one. I'm not at all at odds with this. I mean, you like wire clips or you don't, I guess, but this one works. It's comfortable. It's not a hot spot at all. It's super good. All the hardware and everything's been blacked out on this one, including the clip. The detent. Excellent. Poppy, snappy, wonderful. Wonderful. And that's kind of how everything here is on this one. This is just wonderful. It is a straightforward knife with a little bit of fancied upness, but it's done extremely well. And based on the fact that Asher knives are pretty popular and they sell out pretty quick, and I've only heard of good things, I'm thinking they're pretty consistent about that. I'd like to get more, particularly that blue Warncliffe version of this knife. They're also priced extremely well. I mean, this is M390, this slightly more expensive, I'm sure, carbon fiber, executed to this standard, and I think this knife was $130? I can't quite remember off the top of my head. I know the Warncliffes were $135. Which totally, completely justified. Very good price for this knife. The company, Asher Knives, is actually in, I believe, Pittsburgh, PA, which happens to be the same state I'm in. So that's nice and cool. Not that far away. Hour, maybe. I'm closer to Philly. Not that you need to know that, but I am. Honestly, this is just wonderful. A great user knife. a great knife, well priced, not hurting you for the expensive on the expense is blah, blah, blah. But it just works. It's just well thought out and well designed, and I really do like this one. This is definitely recommendable. Pretty much anything from Asher is, from what I know and have heard about them, I'm willing to say that I probably recommend any of their knives, even without having experienced them. But based on experiencing this one, and from word of mouth and just everything I know about them, they do a good job. I like them. Where's the balance on this one? I think it's a little butt heavy. Yeah, it's a little butt heavy. But super deft in the hand. Yeah, you can kind of feel it. It feels a little bit more butt heavy, but that's because the blade's so thin. Super controllable, super usable, super functional. Very attractive. Asher knives, Spiro, and carbon fiber, and M390. I very much like this knife. I very much carry and use this knife. I have not had to sharpen this because, well, it being so thin, it makes pretty quick work of the relatively light-duty stuff I'm doing with it. I wouldn't suggest cutting through wood or something with this knife, though it probably could. For what I've done with it, it's worked well. Carry, pretty well. Maybe just adjust the pocket clip a tiny bit. Though that may also be a preference thing. I'm not always a huge fan of wire clips myself because you can always pretty much feel them. But again, this one is very good. Other than that little bit of lip there. That's the problem with one thing. When they have flats on the end of the clips, it's not just that it's a flat. It tends to be a flat that orients slightly downward towards the scale. If it was just a flat, it would be one thing. But for some reason, the way they do them almost always has a slight downward cant. So it makes it even more annoying in and out. Or, well, mostly in. But this still works, so no problems. That's all from me. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed seeing the Asher Spiro. And I hope you enjoy my content. If there's anything I can do to make it better, or anything you want to see, or anything, drop it down below. Like and subscribe if you would. That's all from me. Thanks for watching.